So, today I'm just going to talk about the time that I went to Bible camp when I was, I think, 10 or 11 years old. So, I was in primary school, and the 3 or 4 days that we were there, I still remember that as one of the worst times I ever had in my childhood. And I think those 3 or 4 days were actually responsible for the resentment that I eventually built up towards people, especially the Christian people. Now, I don't feel like that anymore because I'm much older now. I don't resent Christians, although I still think many of them, they aren't true, to what they claim to believe in. And, to them, it's only when they feel like it, when they feel like their religion and belief is applicable or can get them out of a situation or can be used as an excuse, then it's important to them. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the horror that I endured at that place. Okay, so the bus arrived at school and it was time for us to go. And I had a buddy with me. In fact, his mom was the person that was in charge of organizing this event. Okay, so we get on the bus and everything is still, everything is fine. We're having a good time, looking out the windows, playing, whatever. We're young kids. And we finally get to the place. Now, the room that we were sleeping in, it had a bunch of bunk beds and so on, was, I think it was like on the second or third floor. But now, this room had a balcony, right? It was weird because you could go up there and you could get on the balcony, but the balcony was indoors, so you could see down. So if you would look down, you would see people in the hall or whatever you would call it. So we went up there, me and my friend, and we were very giddy. We were very happy because this was so cool. We get to go upstairs on the bunk beds and whatever. And I still remember we looked down. We looked down at the other kids. And we waved at them and we're saying, haha, hello, just dumb shit. Because, obviously we're happy now and we're excited. And then we noticed that, there were older kids there. There were kids who looked like they were, 13, 14, 15, something like that. And those kids were at the same school that we were. And some other new kids, I don't know who they were. So the first thing we did would eventually result in one of the things that we would get ostracized for. We did something very innocent. We just went up there and we were waving, at the kids down there. So anyway, the day takes place. They take us to like a little dam, and we're playing with mud. There's a girl I really liked. In fact, it's the same girl that I made the first video about, because I knew her like for my entire childhood, and I was throwing her with mud. We were having a good time and everything. And there was this pastor, the guy, the main man who was in charge. An absolute, I don't even know what words I would use to describe him, but he was so up his own ass. That guy was so full of it, and he thought he was God's gift. In fact, there was another congregation, I think, um, a popular one in town. And he decided, nah, that's not for him. He's gonna form his own, after being in the previous one for like 3 4 years. Now this guy was a massive, massive piece of garbage, and I'll get into that. So we have our event and everything, and the sun is going down, and it's time for us to, it's time for us to pray. It's time for us to pray and sing our songs about God and everything. And everyone's taking it super serious, and I'm seeing the other kids and the older kids, oh man, they're really feeling it, arms up in the air, praise be. And then later that night, the activities, okay, have now come to an end, and they were making like a little bonfire, and the older kids were there, and they were, they were all they were all surrounding this one guy who was playing guitar. And there was this band that was famous at the time. They made this song about like what prayer to the refugee, prayer of the refugee. Let me see here. Let me see. I should have searched this before, but I'm just talking. So, prayer of the refugee. Rise against. Yeah, and they were singing. They were singing like, I don't know, some rise against song, but it wasn't prayer of the refugee. It was some other thing. And I remember going around there, and I just wanted, I wanted to be friendly with the people. I might have even thought at that point, wow, this guy's so cool, And I kept noticing that while I was standing there looking at them, like coming together and singing their stupid little song, there was this fat guy who also looked older, and he was like secluded. He was very lonely, it seemed, and he was sitting on the sides the whole time. He wasn't really interacting with anybody, He actually, in retrospect, he looked very sad. So the first day kind of comes to an end. All right. So nothing much, happened. So the second day it starts off with activities again, but now like the whole prayer and Bible thing comes in, where they were really talking like about stories, talking about like how ridiculous other religions are, how stupid atheism is, like how can you believe in nothing, blah blah blah. And I just want to say that I am no longer an atheist. Like the things I believe in now are very strange, but I'm not an atheist anymore. But at the time, even at that young age, I had my doubts about Christianity. I didn't really know what to believe in, and it was really, how can I put this, like what I experienced really doubled down on the doubt, so to speak. So the second day we're doing this thing, and they're talking about this stuff, and they're singing, and we got these youth leaders, we got these young guys, like 18 or 20, really just throwing it out there. Oh, God, yeah, putting their arms out, and they're like, let me receive, like just this phony, just like this phoniness. And even back then, I could kind of see it. But they kept doing this stuff, right? And, so far, you're probably thinking like, well, what's the big deal? Nothing's happened. So this is what happened. So I met a girl there, and she was older than me, maybe by 2 or 3 years. And she was so nice to me. She spoke to me, and I think maybe I got a little crush on her, but we were like having a good time. She was talking to me. And yeah, she was, I don't know, she was just so nice. She was just so nice, and I couldn't believe it at the time. It's like, wow, I can't believe a girl could be this nice. So then, as as the second day was going on, I was starting to realize, like, these people, they were starting to look at me kind of funny. It's almost as if they knew. It's almost as if they knew, you know, that I wasn't exactly like them, which is crazy because back then, I was still innocent at that point, and I mean, you know, I was just being a kid, and I was excited, and I wanted to be part of the group. I just wanted to be with the cool guys, and so and stuff like that. And then I realized, like, these people were sneering, and they were like starting to like make comments about me, and if I would like approach them, because we're just walking around, and I just wanted to like stand there. You know what I mean? I wasn't being annoying. I wasn't screaming at them or asking questions or everything. I was just there. And then they would like tell me, like, like to go away, like blatantly just tell me to leave and stuff. And you know I don't know, like, when that started happening, I started to feel like maybe these people, like, maybe there is something wrong with me. Maybe I am doing something wrong. But I couldn't understand why they were trying to ostracize me. And the like throughout the day after that happened, I tried a couple more times, like, and they would just like ignore me flat. Like, for some reason, like, these people were now treating me like a leper or something. And I couldn't understand it because, like, these people are like Christians, right? This is a Christian camp. Maybe the night before we were even talking about, like, we're all brothers and we're all sisters, and we gotta come together, and we stick up, we stick up for each other, and like, we're all family. And so, but they were ostracizing me like really, really heavily. And so what eventually ended up happening was, it was time to go to bed, right? And then I saw that kind of fat guy again, like sitting in a chair downstairs, and just like looking somber. He looked somber, but he also, like, something about him. He looked very, you know, I wouldn't say like unbothered, but he had that look on his face, that kind of stony look, where he was like, you know, I don't know, he he just looked, I don't know how to describe it, but he looked like a badass. He was like, I mean, he wasn't like this action hero, like his physique or anything, but he just looked cool. He was just sitting there while also looking sad at the same time. I don't know how to explain it, but I was very young. So we go upstairs, and now the girl that was nice to me from earlier and the older kids were now all sitting there on the bunk beds and stuff, and me and my buddy were there as well. So then I still remember, like, because I was already feeling kind of sad. I was homesick, and I was, I wasn't feeling it. Like, there was a very, very off vibe, if you could say it like that, about the place and the people. Then that very night, like, so we're going to bed, and the people are sitting there on the bed, and then I hear it, like, they're basically saying that me and this buddy of mine, we stood on the balcony to look at the cleavage of the girls. That's why we stood on the balcony, to do that. And they were saying stuff like we're perverts and we're disgusting, and we're, and hearing that as a kid, I mean, that's rough. That was really rough. And I was like, because I think they might have thought we were asleep, and I asked them, like, what is this about, and so the girl was there, and I like got up and I asked them, like, what are you talking about, you know. And then they had this like disgusting, I you know I don't want to exaggerate, but they had this disgusting soulless look in their eyes, just basically, it's like they knew what they were saying was a complete lie. They knew it wasn't true, but they still ran with it anyway, because the only intention there was to just like pick on a little kid and make him feel like shit, and like turn their backs, and I told them like that's not true, and I like try to wake up my buddy, and he was just like no, because he was sleeping and stuff, and I think I said like, I actually told him, it's like, fuck you guys, even at that young age, because I couldn't believe it, and I was like crying, because like, these people are picking on me, and I don't know, I can't understand why I didn't do anything. And I thought, these were Christians, like I thought this is like a Christian camp, and at that time, I was a believer. I was a believer in that stuff, and just seeing the reaction, it's like reality started to hit me. Reality started to hit me at that point, and I was crying, and I left the room. Or before that, I even asked the girl that was nice to me, it's like why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you doing anything? Like, these people are blatantly lying. They're lying about me, like, and she just looked at me the same way that they did. But I could tell deep down, she felt bad about it, But even so, fuck her. Fuck her, and the rest of those people as well, like those phonies, man, those hypocrites. So I was crying, and I ran down the stairs, and there he was still, the fat guy, the stone face man. And I ran up to him, and I asked him, and he asked me like, why are you crying? And then I told him, nah, like these people, are spreading lies about me, saying that I did stuff which I didn't do. They're attributing like malice to me, where, you know what I mean? It's just like, and you have to understand, like, this maybe doesn't sound so bad, but at the time, I didn't have this kind of like herd rejection. I never experienced anything like that before. And I also thought, like, like Christ, he's moving through these people. He's moving through me. He's part of the crew, like, or he's got the crew, and he's got the whole world in his hands. But then at that point, like, like it's kind of weird, like how it got initiated. This is not the only reason why I eventually turned into a religion despising monster. But that's, I think, a point where it really started, in that camp. And back to the guy. So he asked me why I was crying. I told him, like, nah, these people are fucked up, man, and everything. And then he basically told me, like, yeah, dude, these people here, they ain't right. There's something wrong with them. And he alluded to the fact that, it's the same for him as well. He just got ostracized and rejected, like, from day one, and apparently he knew these people, like, for years before even doing the camp and whatever. And then it all clicked. It's like he was just the first victim. And he was actually such a nice, he was like one of the nice guys there, and he just affirmed what I was saying. But I was like feeling really sad, so I just went. I think I went outside of the hall, and then one of the people came up to me, and they were like, why aren't you in bed? And then I tried to explain to them, nah, like these people are saying this and that and whatever. And if I remember correctly, they just sent me back. They just sent me back to bed. They were just like, just shut up, stop crying. We gotta get up early tomorrow to do stuff again. And then, yeah, and then I can't remember how that night ended. I don't even know if I went back or if I slept somewhere else. I can't recall. So that really, really was really, really sad. Then the next day we had this thing, like I went up to this pastor and I told him, like, and this wasn't necessarily just because of what happened with those people, but I remember this pastor, like I told him like, like I'm struggling in my faith. I don't know what to believe, I don't think, I think I'm starting to not believe in this stuff anymore. And he chuckled, and then he just looked at me, um, and he was like, come and talk to me, like in 5 minutes or something like that. And then what the weird thing was, I think I went back to him after that, after 5 minutes, and he just ignored me. He just ignored me. I went up to him to talk to him, and he literally turned his back and then just started talking to other people and stuff. And I was like, but wait a minute, this God's man? Ain't this God's man? This is supposed to be God's man. And I thought we were all a crew. I thought we were like strengthened in faith. And he just turned his back on me, and he ignored me, and he left. He went to go do some other stuff and talk to other people, and then I couldn't believe it. So it's basically now he's doing the same thing, just ostracizing me for nothing. And yeah, and I couldn't believe it. It's like, and here's the thing, I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything messed up. I didn't do anything messed up. And there was this part where we had to write a little message for God, and burn a cross. Now, I don't know, I don't know about that, burning a cross, even I think if it's like for a religious, I don't know. I don't know exactly know what the symbolism is in that, but that to me is just a little bit weird. Like burning a cross. Like I understand, like in media sometimes, like a music video, people would do that. A band I really like did that in one of their music videos. But to me, that was just very strange. But then on the letter, the seed was already planted. The little letter we had to write to God. I was like, with 10 or 11, I was just writing, it's like, I am sorry, but I can't believe in something like this. If this is God's people, you understand what I mean? Like, uh, I can't do this. I don't believe in you. I don't believe anymore. And yeah, then I basically, yeah. So we did that. And, all the while, these people still ostracizing, saying more stuff about us, saying we're like this, saying we're like that, like, I don't know. And, maybe it doesn't sound that bad, but to me, that was horrible. I still remember on the bus home when all of that stuff happened. Basically, one of my first encounters with like rejection, by just a bunch of people for no reason. There was no reason for them to do that because I was nice. I remember, well, I wasn't exactly that nice, maybe at home, but to other people outside, I was very nice. I was, um, uh, you know, I don't think I did anything to deserve that. That's all I'm trying to say. They just focused in on me for some reason. They knew something, about me before I even opened my mouth. It's so weird. But yeah, I remember on the bus home, I just felt very, very alienated. I think I was still listening to Billy Talent. Billy Talent on an MP3 player. And I was just listening to that, and I was just going so into it. I was like, like, this is, I can't believe what just happened. I don't understand what I did. And yeah, it really stuck with me. And it turns out that pastor started like this cult type congregation later on. And I don't know, it was just a massive piece of shit. And I think most of those other kids, I don't know what happened to them. I don't care to find out or whatever. But that was also, a turning point for me. And I think in a strange way, even though it was really horrible for me, I think it's a good thing that happened at that age, because it it made me want to, it made me cautious in some ways of people, later on in life, you know but this is, yeah, that's just where it started. It goes way more in depth, but anyway, that is just all I wanted to talk about for now. So yeah, thanks for listening, and see ya.